Hello. So in this video, I will be showcasing my run against Savage Omega with Charge Blade and my win. And my helpful commentary on the side as like supplemental material. Basically, what I want to do with my commentary is talk a little bit about the armor and skills that I used and just my overall strategies for this fight with Charge Blade. And just some general strategies as well. So talking armor and skills. So armor, I have the Ray Dow Gamma Helmet, the Lagiacrus Chestplate Beta, or Male, I think it's called, Lagiacrus Male, but whatever, the Chestplate Beta, the Guardian Arkveld Van Braces Beta, the Lagiacrus Coil, I think it's the pants, they're called coils, the Lagiacrus Coil Beta, and the Uth Duna Greaves Gamma. Now, in terms of skills, the most important ones I'd say are Guard Up, Power Prolonger, Evade Extender, and Binding Resistance. Of those skills, I'd say Guard Up is the most important because Guard Up allows you to block the laser beams that Omega shoots out. So you definitely want to be blocking those instead of evading those because, you know, you're playing Charge Blade, you're playing a weapon with the ability to block. So, you know, you don't want to be trying to evade stuff you can block, is what I'm trying to say. As for the other skills, Evade Extender is really handy for getting out of dodge. Power Prolonger is honestly probably the second most important skill, in my opinion, just because having the ability to keep your weapons charged up as long as possible is really important in this fight, and I'll talk a little bit later about that. But just keep in mind that it is really important. After that, I'd say Bind Resistance is probably the third most important skill because having the ability to ignore the like ice move that Omega does is really nice because if he hits you with the ice move and binds you to the ground, he'll usually follow up with like, the charge attack that will kill you. So, you know, just having the ability to avoid that is nice. Thankfully, I was really lucky in this fight and Omega just like didn't really use the ice move too much. But you can definitely have fights where he likes to spam it a lot. So talking just about Charge Blade with this fight, to be completely honest, this fight is really hard with Charge Blade. This fight is very difficult. And the main reason is that of the many upsides and positives of Charge Blade, it does have a very few downsides. One of them being that it's a slow weapon, right? Maybe not as slow as Greatsword, but it is slow and it has a lot of very long animations. Some of those animations being charging your sword, going into Savage X mode, and doing your discharge combo and amped elemental discharge combo. Those attacks and other moves in Charge Blade's kit just take a long time to do. As you can see, I'm charging the sword here. See how long it takes to just charge a sword? I did it there because I had the opportunity, but I wouldn't just do that so haphazardly because Omega is very, very capable of easily just killing you in an instant if you're just kind of being reckless with your placement and positioning of moves and other tools. So that's one of the hard parts about this fight with Charge Blade is having the ability to ramp up all your stuff is very hard. Omega is a very persistent monster and very erratic and frantic, so it's hard. It's really hard. But with that, I sort of developed a strategy for this fight that works for me, right? It's just my strategy. I'm not saying that this is like the way to do Charge Blade with this fight. There are definitely many ways you can take this fight on with Charge Blade and with any weapon, but this is just the way that I found that worked for me specifically. So what I did was I relied more on Sword and Shield mode, right? For A, the ability to guard, and B, because you're more mobile in Sword and Shield mode, right? Your speed, your walking speed is a bit faster in Sword mode than it is in Axe mode. So I relied on that, and the fact that with Sword mode, even though it doesn't do as much damage as Axe mode, obviously, what it does offer is the fact that its attacks are much faster. So I can do more sustained damage to Omega rather than doing like bursts of damage with Axe mode. But that's not to say I don't rely on Axe mode as I'm doing right now in the video, as you can see. But what I do think of with this fight with Axe mode is use it more for opportunity. right? I use axe mode for like, if I have an opportunity to do a lot of damage, like right now when he's focused on Alessa doing the power clash, you know, I'm like, okay, I have the chance to do my, you know, discharges or so on and so forth. Another really important thing with axe mode is to not overextend, right? So don't just like be attacking, right? Don't like try to do like the entire combo every single time. Just do, you know, just play it safe, right? Do like the draw attack, or just do like a singular discharge or singular amped elemental discharge, right? Don't try to like overextend and do the entire like combo attack string, because like I said, Omega can very easily just turn around and kill you in an instant. So you want to be able to just you know, just do like a singular, you know, little burst of damage with axe mode, and then you, you know, so go back to shield mode to protect yourself, or you just sheath your weapon to also like run away and protect yourself. But yeah, that's kind of the main issues with Charge Blade in this fight, is that it's just Omega can punish you really hard for it if you overextend too much. So that's why I recommend just not using axe mode to primarily do damage, and use it for more like opportune, like burst damage moments, if that makes sense. So hopefully I kind of explained myself well there. Going into like general tips, this fight has a lot of environmental hazards that you can use, such as like ice pillars and stuff, especially in this area that we're in, the phase 2 arena. The brutal ice pillars in the back of the arena, like I just used one, they do a lot of damage. They do like 3,000. It's pretty good. I definitely recommend trying to hit them, but if you can't, you know, don't worry too much, because you can definitely still clear the fight without using the hazards, but the hazards are super duper helpful. They do a lot of damage and they knock Omega down, so you can do more damage. Another general tip is knowing when to just disengage from Omega. Even this fight, even though like Savage Omega specifically has a lot of health and you only have a 35-minute time limit, this fight isn't actually as strict as you might think. That's not to say this fight doesn't have some level of strictness, and it definitely is pretty punishing, but it's not like so hard that like if you make one mistake you're just over, you have to restart, right? You'll see in this run that I ended up dying twice, and I also just ended up making a lot of other mistakes, but I still ended up clearing with like a decent-ish amount of time. But yeah, this fight is not as punishing as you think. As long as you're not being like too reckless and not making too many mistakes, you can actually be pretty lenient with how you engage Omega. And one of those ways, like I said, just be okay with disengaging, right? So, you know, if Omega is just kind of like not in a good spot, just, you know, run away, sheath your weapon, run away, move around him, right? Get to his back legs, or get away from him, or whatever, right? So like here's another example of me using the opportunity to attack him with axe mode, because he's in a really good position to attack him with axe mode. But yeah, just be okay with disengaging to, you know, reposition yourself, but also to like heal, obviously, to resharpen your weapon, to refresh the duration of your hot drink, things like that. Definitely very important, right? Survivability is important in this fight more than anything, so just keep that in mind. Another tip for this fight is don't do what I did right there with the Muster Bomb and Pictomancer stuff. But definitely be using your Pictomancers. Your Pictomancer abilities do a lot of damage, and Mog of the Ages definitely does the most. But the Pictomancer abilities are really good, especially if you're just kind of in a situation where Omega is like sitting in the corner like this and just kind of being weird. This is like not a bad time to just get behind him or get in front of him or wherever and just hit him with a Pictomancer ability. Another general tip for this fight is to pop wounds whenever they show up. Usually it's not a bad idea to just save the wounds for Omega, because if you pop a wound, you can knock him out of his dangerous attacks. But at the same time, he can just move around and prevent you from hitting his wounds and then just heal his wound. So I usually just pop them instantly. I try not to save them, but, you know, I'd say that's up to your discretion on how you want to deal with wounds. So I'm just telling you what I did. Another tip that I probably should have said first. Well, I guess I can talk about that later, but another just like general tip is, I guess, don't be afraid to hit the front legs. Even though the hind legs take the most damage from slashing attacks, the front legs aren't exactly like resistant. So, you know, don't be afraid to hit the front legs, right? It's okay. Same with the head, right? Unless he's aggroed, you know, you don't want to hit the head if he's aggroed. But if you're in a position where you can't hit the hind legs, then just hit the front legs. Another general tip that I recommend, as like I guess the last one I can think of off the top of my head, is try not to get into a corner against Omega, because Omega in the corner is really, really dangerous, because it's basically impossible to dodge his AoE attacks if you're in the corner. So really try your best not to be in the corner against him, because you're going to put yourself in a very high probability of death if you do that. So talking away from general tips to general strategy with Charge Blade and with any weapon. So I did this fight with support hunters, but you could definitely do this strategy with player hunters as well. But I definitely recommend coordinating with your player hunters through voice chat or text chat or whatever. If you're playing with strangers, right? Or if you're playing with friends, you know, just voice chat. So the strategy that I use for this fight with support hunters is to take aggro consistently. Every time he loses aggro or every time he changes phases, I try to run back and take it back. Because Alessa, the support hunter tank, while she does a really good job of keeping aggro and can do a really good job of taking aggro, there are many times where she actually struggles a bit. Because unfortunately, the support hunters are kind of weird. And sometimes they'll just like run away and disengage from the fight for like whatever reason. Sometimes to heal, sometimes for just like no reason. So that's why I recommend you take aggro. That way, Alessa has a much has a much easier time taking the aggro back from you, right? So just take aggro and, you know, play safe until Omega is, you know, not focused on you anymore. That way you can go to the hind legs and hit him in the, you know, hit him in the ankles for a lot of damage. As for some other general strategies, just focus more on doing sustained damage than burst damage. Like I said, for like the reason why I use, you know, sword mode most of the fight is, even though Omega does have a lot of health, as long as you're hitting him, you know, that's what's most important, right? Like, I understand that some weapons have, you know, big attacks, right? Charge Blade has like the amped elemental discharges into the super amped elemental discharge, and, you know, stuff like Greatsword has the true charge slash, and Hammer has like the level 3 charge attack. And, you know, well, definitely, you know, those do a lot of damage and are good. The only problem is that those moves tend to take a long time to do. And like I said, Omega is very, very erratic and very frantic. He will move around a lot. Even when aggroed, he still does a lot of stuff that can easily kill you. So I highly recommend just focusing more on just hitting him more than hitting him less, right? Instead of trying to hit him with like less hits but more damage, just hit him with more hits but less damage. Does that make sense? So, because the thing is that at the end of the day, those sustained hits that you do, those sustained little hits will build up, right? They'll build up to just more damage over time, compared to like the little bursts of damage that you do, and you know, the like shorter bursts of damage that you do, right? Of course, like I said, that's just how I view this fight and how I decided to. That's like the mindset I went in playing with this fight. But of course, it's definitely going to be just very different depending on just your own playstyle and the weapon you're using, right? So just talking back to Charge Blade, you can use elemental files for this fight. I believe you can get like an Ardian Charge Blade that has Thunder elemental files, and that's definitely not bad to do. But just understand, like I said, that the super amped elemental discharge is very risky. So really really take the time to learn the fight if you're going to go that route. If you're using impact files, just don't worry too much about file damage. It's really not important. So no, don't do super amped elemental discharge with Charge Blade impact files. Trust me, the damage is really not worth it. Going into the Nerscylla DPS check here, I use Sword and Shield because Charge Blade is honestly really, really cringe in this part of the fight. It's just not fun, and it's just very annoying and just aggravating. But if you do want to use Charge Blade, use a paralysis one. Nerscylla is weak to fire, but I think what's most important here is not hitting her elemental weakness, but just keeping her locked down to just hit her, right? The Nerscylla in Savage mode, or in the Savage fight, has 19,000 health, and you only have 2 minutes, I believe, to kill it. So I'd say just get a paralysis Charge Blade to lock it down much easier. Now, you can use the little more blows like you saw there, to paralyze Nursilla, but honestly, I just got really, really good RNG here. I've had many fights where the Nursilla just kind of moves out of the way before the other Morblows come, so I just got really lucky here with the good Morblow RNG. But if you get good RNG like I did, then you can definitely just absolutely destroy Nursilla. But if you don't get good Morblow RNG like I did, then Nursilla will just kind of run around the map, and it's very annoying. But yeah, that's the DPS check done. Like I said, if you're going to do Charge Blade, do a Paralysis one. Or just use a different weapon, right? I recommend Sword and Shield. It's a very easy weapon to learn, and it does do a lot of damage, so moving into post Delta Omega, one of the nice things you can do is knock down that boulder above him and then knock down that wall. More often than not, he'll try to do like a charge attack, but that wall will stop him. But do know that sometimes he can slip under the wall and hit you with a charge attack, so just be ready to block is what I want to say. So post Delta Omega is probably where the fight gets really hard. Well, not probably, but it is. This is where the fight gets a lot harder. Mainly because when he does his flamethrower attack, like right here, he'll do 3 in a row this time instead of 2. Now, of course, the flamethrower attack is not the most hard attack to deal with, but having to do 3 in a row is definitely just a little bit dangerous, especially if you're in like against the wall or in a weird spot. Another dangerous attack that he now enhances is his charging attacks. He'll start doing 3 in a row now. Or sometimes he'll do like 1 charge attack and then either cancel it into another move or just cancel it overall. As you saw there, I did a power clash. And I was in the pit of fire, but I rolled away because I did not want to attack while I was in the pit of fire and die. Another really dangerous attack that Omega has in phase 3, pre and post Delta, is the Orb, as I like to call it, or just a giant energy ball. I don't know what the actual attack is called, but I just call it the Orb. And that Orb is scary because it inflicts you with a debuff that decreases your max HP, or it caps your max HP at a lower value. So you definitely don't want to get hit by it, but if you do, just disengage from Omega and wait for the cooldown to, wait for it to like run down the timer for it to get removed. I don't know if there's another way to remove the debuff. I'm pretty sure you just have to wait out the timer. So just disengage, wait out the timer, and then re-engage. Or if you're confident, you can just engage him with the debuff, but just know that he can fuck you up if you have it. So the other scary thing about that debuff is that if Omega's aggroed onto you, the timer for the debuff will actually, it won't start. It basically becomes permanent if he's aggroed onto you, so just keep that in mind when, aggroing Omega. So just play safe is what I'm trying to say. I'm in the bubble shield here, so I play a lot more risky and, just focus more on doing damage because the shield protects you from every projectile attack that he has, so, no need to play safe when you're in the bubble shield, right? But do know the shields can break, so, just, be very attentive of what Omega is doing and attentive of your surroundings and environment with this fight. He's doing the laser beam, so I'd use a Pictomancer because that's like the perfect time to use a laser beam. He has a wound on his leg that I missed. Sad. And now we move on to phase 4. Phase 4 is probably the hardest part of the fight because I don't know if Omega's behavior changes or anything, but I feel like phase 4, he just becomes a lot more erratic and frantic. He starts jumping around a lot more. He starts stalling for time a lot more. He starts doing a lot of more scary like move combinations. It's basically the do or die phase of the fight, and Omega's like, I'm either going to just stall you out for time or I'm going to obliterate your entire body into ash. So one of the reasons is that he reactivates Paint to Crater mode, which is very scary. However, thankfully this fight, or this part of the fight, will how do I say it? When you reach this part of the fight is where you'll start breaking his legs. If you haven't broken them already, you can break them earlier, but at this point in the fight, this is most likely we're going to start breaking his legs. And if you break his legs, you gain a huge advantage in 2 ways. One, he drops a part that you can pick up and you get a shield generator pod that puts down a little bubble shield that, Omega puts down when you hit his head, or when you pop a wound on his head or hit the weak points. So you can get that as like a little Stinger pod, which is really handy, right? The shields are really helpful, right? For right. I gotta stop repeating myself so much, but yeah, the shields are helpful. Like you see here, I get hit with a mustard bomb, but thankfully the shield protects me, so pretty nice. But another reason you want to break his legs is because it will knock him down over on the side. And when Omega is knocked down over on this side, his little antenna will stick out. That's above his head and freaking out right now, as you can see. And that antenna is the weakest part of his body. You will do the most damage hitting that part of his body. So when he gets knocked down, immediately just sheath your weapon and run over and just hit his antenna as much as possible, right? Try not to like, you know, how you say, try not to like see that opportunity as like, oh my god, I'm gonna do like a billion damage, right? Because Omega doesn't stay down for that long. So unless you're like already in a good position where when he gets knocked down, you're just right in front of the antenna. If you have to run around to his side, just hit him with like whatever, like, I guess just hit him with whatever is like a quick combo that will still do like decent damage. You know what I mean? You kind of see what I mean when I knock him over in like a bit here. But yeah, phase 4 is just pretty tough. It's just kind of, it's really just a phase where I recommend playing as safe as possible because Omega likes to do a lot of very scary, very dangerous moves. And this is the phase where I definitely rely a little bit more on my sword mode. Yeah, so see here, I knock him down, but unfortunately I did the charge blade focus attack, which has a very long animation. But see here, I just do like the draw attack into discharge 1. And then I do discharge 2, but I don't have enough time, as you can see. So there, what I should have done was just a draw attack, and then I should have just done amped elemental discharge 1. And then that would have been enough to do some pretty solid damage. Probably a little bit more than what I did there. So that's kind of what I mean, was just like, you just kind of see where you are in position. See where you, oh my goodness, I cannot speak, I'm so sorry. See where you are in relation to where he is. I cannot speak to it. I am so sorry. But yeah, most of this fight is just me playing it pretty safe, pretty casual. And even though the timer is definitely running down in this phase, you know, like I said, as long as you just don't throw super duper hard, it's still pretty lenient overall, and you have time, right? If you make it to this phase and you still have like at least 13 minutes left, then you're pretty good to go. Like I said, as long as you don't make any super critical mistakes, then you're pretty. It's fine, right? I almost died there to the Panther Crater like frog move, is what I like to call it, where you start jumping around and spewing fire. I like to call it the frog move. I got hit with this flame there because that was too risky, playing a little bit too risky. But yeah, it's all about just playing safe and playing cautious, and just, you know, when there's an opportunity to hit him with big damage, I hit him with big damage. So yeah, not much else to really say. Oh yes, I always forget about it every time I talk about it and think about it, but I always forget it because it slips my mind, because it's traumatic. The MRV missiles. This is the worst attack that Omega has, in my opinion, for two reasons. One is that the MRV missiles, or the MERV missiles, as I like to call them, are really, really, really good at stalling for time. Because that attack lasts for a pretty solid amount of time, and he can just like do it a lot, right? He'll just spam it sometimes. It's very annoying. It's very annoying. And not only that, but excuse me, the MERV missiles are also just really dangerous. If you get hit by one missile, then it's very likely that you can, or it's very easy to get hit by another missile. That's what I'm trying to say. So you have to like you have to like really time your roll or dodge or your sacred call correctly, or else you run the risk of getting blown to smithereens, which is not something you want in this fight. Another unfortunate thing with the MERV missiles is that with support hunters, they like to just sometimes run right next to you when they're being targeted by missiles. So there are a lot of times where they will overlap their missile with yours and create a bigger wide area. You'll see that happen here, and unfortunately it's what leads to my second death, because all my support hunters were on top of one another, so all the missiles were just overlaid and created a much bigger explosion than what's intended. So yeah, try not to overlap the Merv missiles. It's a very dangerous move. So there's my second death, but you know, it's okay, right? Even though right now the time is definitely scary, right? 10 minutes left at this point. You know, I have time, right? It's still enough time in the fight, right? Just don't worry too much about deaths in this fight. Just think of every time you die as a free chance to refill your, you know, your items and, you know, refresh your like potion durations, right? Don't be too afraid of dying, or don't worry too much over death. Don't be afraid of dying, but like don't die. Obviously, don't try not to die in this fight, but don't worry too much if you do die, right? Just think of it as like a nice opportunity to refresh your stuff. But anyways, getting back into the fight. Just wailing on him. Right, nothing too crazy. Right? Nothing different than anything I've already said. Here's one of his other really dangerous attacks. He probably did it earlier, but I didn't pay attention, which is just the laser beam into missile attack. That one's also super dangerous because it's just a lot of AoEs to deal with. So it's very annoying. Now he's doing Larboard, Starboard. Larboard, Wave, Cannon, Surge. If you want any advice for Larboard and Starboard wave cannons, the best advice I can give you is if you're facing Omega, like you're facing his front side, right? Larboard will attack to your right side and Starboard will attack to your left side. But if you're behind Omega, then Starboard and Larboard will attack to their respective sides. So, you know, Larboard is left, so it'll be left. Starboard is right, so it'll be right. So if you're in front of him, it's opposite. If you're behind him, it's not. It's the best way to describe it. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, as I mentioned earlier, being in a corner against Omega is really dangerous, like I am right now in the corner against Omega. You're about to see why in just a second. Even though I had a lot of, even though, you know, it wasn't the worst thing because, you know, he got knocked down a little bit. I was able to hit him for a bit of damage there, but you'll see why it was really dangerous. So that line of dialogue there where he says possibility of defeat detected, that means we're getting really, really close. I saw some people online on Twitter mention that when he says that dialogue, that means he has about 10% HP left. So that means you're really close to the end of the fight. So, you know, don't choke. As you see, I almost choked there. I almost died really, really bad. Thankfully, the missile knocked me out, or it knocked me out of the way of the charging attack, so I managed to not die. But, you know, it's dangerous. And he's doing the charge attacks. I just block because I'm not dealing with that shit right now. And then the MRV missiles, I'm just, you know, playing safe, right? It's okay. We have time, right? If we reach this point of the fight and I still have, like, you know, 5 minutes left, I'm not worried, right? I have plenty of time, right? 10% HP for Omega is about, like, let's see, Savage Omega has, like, 180,000 health, I think, with 4 players. So 10% would be, like, 18,000, right? I believe my math is right there. So, you know, 18,000 HP is literally nothing, right? You can kill Nursilla and you can kill the 19,000 health Nursilla in 2 minutes. You can kill an 18k health Omega in 2 minutes, right? Like I said, it definitely is still scary because Omega is very capable of killing you instantly, but, you know, as long as you don't choke super hard, nothing to worry about. But yeah, overall, Charge Blade with this fight is just super duper hard. I don't really like it that much. I just use Sword and Shield for this fight, but I wanted to record myself doing Charge Blade and make a fun little helpful commentary to just discuss my strategies for this fight with Charge Blade. But like I mentioned, there's a lot of different ways you can tackle this fight because it's not as strict as you think it is. So, you know, just kind of play around with whatever strategy you kind of figure out on your own. And whatever strategy you surmise from watching other people's strategies. Right? Most important thing is to just play this fight in a way that's comfortable to you. And to coordinate with your fellow players to make this fight much more smooth and enjoyable. But yeah, not much else to say. Omega is getting very close to death here, as he's doing his best to stall for time and to kill, but mainly stall for time. Using my boulders here to do extra damage. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. Just I definitely I don't know if I can recommend doing this fight with Charge Blade, honestly. I'd say just do a different weapon. Like, it's just hard. It's so hard. I just feel like it's just not as fun because Omega is so unorthodox in how you have to fight him that it just doesn't really feel as satisfying with Charge Blade. But maybe you just have to fight him more. But I don't know. For me, I just don't really like this fight with Charge Blade all that much. So... Well, that's just my own opinion. You know, as you can see, I can very clearly do this fight with Charge Blade, right? And boom, he dies to the shield damage, which is pretty funny. But yeah, that's Omega Planetes, or Savage Omega Planetes with Charge Blade. Overall, pretty hard fight and very obnoxious fight. Curse you, Ursula, I hate you. But yeah, hopefully the commentary I had was helpful, insightful. If it may, you know, maybe it was a little bit boring, but yeah, here I show my equipment. I kind of went through it a little bit fast, so that's my fault. But hopefully you can pause and see what decorations I had. I do just want to quickly note the talisman I had is a like farmable talisman in the sense of like it's, you know, like the 9-star monsters, they drop talismans that you can farm. So just keep that in mind that I do have a farmable talisman. But you can probably run just like the store stuff. Just kind of just buy whichever suits your needs, right? And that's kind of it. So yeah, Savage Omega with Charge Blade, super sick. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.